The tray of Dom Perignon champagne flutes sailed through the air in slow motion. Emma Hayes watched in horror as $500 worth of premium bubbly escaped her trembling hands. The sound of crystal shattering against Italian marble echoed through the five-star restaurant like thunder. Dead silence. 80 pairs of eyes turned toward her patrons, who spent more on one dinner than she earned in a month, all staring at the clumsy waitress who just transformed an elegant Thursday evening into an epic disaster. "Darn it," she whispered, forgetting completely where she was. "Hayes." Manager Marcus's voice sliced through the air like a blade. But before she could kneel to collect the shards, a masculine hand gently caught her arm. "Honey, are you okay?" Emma looked up and met the most devastatingly handsome face she'd ever seen. Steel gray eyes, a jawline that looked carved by Renaissance masters, dark brown hair perfectly tousled. The man wore a Tom Ford tuxedo worth more than her car, and he was calling her honey as if he'd known her for years. She stammered, completely lost. "Don't worry about the glasses, sweetheart," he said loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear while tenderly brushing her cheek. "You know how nervous you get before meeting my family." "What the heck?" Emma blinked in confusion, but some primitive instinct made her play along. The man had barely perceptible desperation in his eyes, and Marcus was approaching with a face that screamed immediate termination. "Sorry, babe," she murmured, surprised by how natural her own voice sounded. "I'm just so anxious about making a good impression on your mom." The relieved smile he gave her could have melted Antarctic ice. "Mom's going to adore you," he whispered, then louder. "She already does, from all the stories I've told her about my beautiful wife." "Wife?" Across the restaurant, an elegant woman in her 50s waved cheerfully, clearly buying their impromptu performance. "Mr. Blackstone." Marcus had arrived, all irritation evaporating upon recognizing who was defending the disaster-prone employee. "I'm terribly sorry about this incident. Everything will naturally be complimentary." "Actually, Marcus," the man called Blackstone interrupted with natural authority, "could you bring the check for table 12 and perhaps arrange for someone to clean this up while my wife and I finish our evening?" "Absolutely, sir. Right away." As Marcus hurried off, Blackstone took Emma's hands in his. "I apologize," he whispered quickly. "I can explain everything, but I desperately needed a wife for the next hour, and you were the most stunning woman in the room when chaos struck." Emma looked at him, then at the elegant family waving from across the dining room, then back at those impossible steel gray eyes. "All right," she heard herself saying, "but you owe me the most incredible explanation in history." "Deal," he smiled, and Emma felt something dangerous flutter in her chest. "By the way, I'm Ryan Blackstone, and you just rescued my life." "Emma Hayes, and you just saved my job." They stared at each other for a moment that seemed suspended in time, still holding hands amid the crystal wreckage. "So," Emma murmured, "what happens now, husband?" His smile was pure mischief and charm. "Now, wife, you meet the family. Try not to drop anything else." Ryan's hand was warm and steady as he guided Emma across the restaurant's polished floor, past curious diners who pretended not to stare. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for escape. "What am I doing?" she thought frantically. "I'm a waitress from Brooklyn pretending to be married to a man who probably owns half of Manhattan." "Breathe," Ryan murmured near her ear, his voice a low rumble that sent unexpected shivers down her spine. "You're doing great." "I don't even know your middle name," she whispered back through a forced smile. "Alexander." "Yours?" "Rose." "Beautiful, like you." The casual compliment made her cheeks burn. This was insane. 5 minutes ago she'd been worrying about rent money, and now she was walking toward a table full of New York's elite, pretending to be someone's wife. "Ryan." The elegant older woman rose from her chair, arms extended. She had silver hair swept into a perfect chignon and wore pearls that probably cost more than Emma's apartment deposit. And this must be the famous Emma. "Mom," Ryan said, his entire demeanor shifting into something warmer, more genuine. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Emma." Wife. The word hit her like a physical blow every time. Ryan's mother, Catherine, Emma remembered he'd mentioned the name somewhere, embraced Emma with surprising warmth. "My dear, you're even more lovely than Ryan described. I'm Catherine Blackstone, but please call me Catherine. It's wonderful to finally meet you." "It's wonderful to finally meet you, Catherine," Emma replied, hoping her smile looked natural and not like she was about to throw up from nerves. "And this is my father, William," Ryan continued, gesturing to a distinguished man with silver temples who stood to shake her hand. "Emma," William said with genuine warmth. "Welcome to the family officially." "Officially?" Emma's confusion must have shown because Ryan smoothly interjected. "Dad, you remember Emma couldn't make it to the courthouse ceremony last month. She was working double shifts at the hospital." "Hospital?" Emma nearly choked. "I work at a restaurant, you gorgeous lunatic." "Of course," Catherine said sympathetically. "Ryan told us you're a nurse. How noble. We admire people who dedicate their lives to helping others." Emma felt like Alice falling down the rabbit hole. She was supposed to be a nurse now. She could barely keep a tray of drinks upright, and they thought she saved lives for a living. "It's rewarding work," she managed, silently praying they wouldn't ask her about medical procedures. "Sit, sit." Catherine gestured to the empty chairs. "We've already ordered appetizers. I hope you like oysters." "Love them," Emma lied smoothly, grateful she'd at least seen them served enough times to know which fork to use. As they settled into their seats, Ryan's hand found hers under the table. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm, and Emma had to remind herself this was all pretend. The casual intimacy felt far too real. "So, tell us," William leaned forward with paternal interest, "how did you two really meet?" Ryan's been maddeningly vague about the details. Emma's mind went completely blank. They wanted a love story, and she had nothing. Panic began to set in, until Ryan squeezed her hand. "Actually," Ryan said with a smile that looked almost shy, "I was hoping Emma would tell that story. She tells it better than I do." "Oh, you sneaky, gorgeous man." Emma looked around the table at their expectant faces and felt a strange calm settle over her. She was good at stories. She'd grown up entertaining her little sister with elaborate tales during their mother's long shifts at the diner. "Well," she began, surprised by her own confidence, "it was actually pretty embarrassing. I was having the worst day. I'd spilled coffee on my scrubs, my car wouldn't start, and I was running late for my shift. I rushed into this little coffee shop near the hospital, not watching where I was going, and I crashed straight into Ryan." She glanced at him and found him watching her with fascination, as if he were hearing this story for the first time too. He was wearing this gorgeous charcoal suit, probably cost more than my monthly salary, and I managed to dump my entire iced coffee down the front of it. Catherine gasped. "Oh no." I was mortified. I started babbling apologies and trying to clean him off with these tiny coffee shop napkins, and he just stood there laughing. Laughing. William raised an eyebrow at his son. Ryan picked up the thread seamlessly. She looked so fierce, scrubbing at my jacket like she could will the stain away through pure determination. I thought she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The way he said it, looking directly at Emma, made her breath catch. For a moment she almost believed it herself. "And then?" Catherine prompted, clearly delighted. "He asked me to dinner," Emma continued. "Said I owed him a new suit. But I never collected on the suit," Ryan added softly. "I got something much more valuable instead." The silence that followed was warm and happy, broken only when William cleared his throat pointedly. "When do we get to hear about grandchildren?" Emma choked on her water while Ryan laughed. "Dad, we've been married exactly 3 weeks. Give us time to enjoy being newlyweds." 3 weeks? Catherine sighed romantically. Still in the honeymoon phase. How lovely. If only they knew, Emma thought. Our honeymoon phase consists of the last 15 minutes of elaborate lying, but as Ryan's thumb continued its gentle caress across her knuckles, she had to admit for a fake honeymoon phase, it felt surprisingly real. "So, Emma," Catherine continued, "tell us about your family. Are they here in New York?" Emma's stomach dropped. She hadn't prepared for biographical questions. Her real family consisted of her sister Jess, who was studying art therapy on scholarship, and their mom, who worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. Hardly the background expected for Mrs. Ryan Blackstone. "Well," she began carefully, "it's a small family. My sister and I were raised by our mother. She's a teacher. Close enough to the truth," she reasoned. "Mom did help kids with homework at the community center." "How wonderful!" Catherine beamed. "Educators are so important." What grade does she teach? Elementary, Emma said quickly, then steered the conversation away from dangerous territory. She always said helping children was the most important job in the world. Wise woman, William nodded approvingly. I'd love to meet her soon. That's never happening, Emma thought, imagining her mother's reaction to this whole insane situation. The appetizers arrived and Emma focused on not making a fool of herself with the oysters. She watched the Blackstones discreetly, copying their elegant movements and hoping she looked like she belonged. Ryan tells us, you two are planning to look for a house, Catherine said between delicate bites. Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. They were what now? Nothing's definite yet, Ryan said smoothly. We're still deciding between the city and Connecticut. Connecticut would be lovely for children, William suggested with a meaningful look. Dad, Ryan warned, with good humor. I'm just saying that big house in Greenwich is sitting empty. Your grandmother would have loved to see it filled with great-grandchildren. Emma felt like she was drowning in the complexity of this family's expectations and history. Every comment added another layer to the web of lies they'd have to maintain. We should probably head out soon, Ryan said, checking his watch. Emma has an early shift tomorrow. Thank goodness, Emma thought. Much more of this, and I'll slip up for sure. Of course, dear, Catherine said, then turned to Emma with warm eyes. This has been absolutely lovely. We must do this again very soon. I'd like that, Emma heard herself saying, and was surprised to realize she meant it. Despite the deception, she genuinely liked Ryan's parents. As they prepared to leave, Catherine pulled Emma aside while the men settled the check. I have to tell you something, she said quietly, taking Emma's hands. I've never seen Ryan this happy. Whatever you've done to put that light in his eyes, thank you. Emma's chest tightened with guilt. I haven't done anything special. Oh, my dear. Catherine smiled knowingly. Love is always special, even when the people experiencing it don't realize how special it is yet. As they said their goodbyes with promises to meet again soon, Emma's mind reeled with Catherine's words. The woman had seen something between Emma and Ryan that even they hadn't acknowledged. Walking back through the restaurant toward the exit, Emma caught their reflection in one of the large mirrors lining the walls. They looked like a couple, his hand on the small of her back, her body naturally leaning into his warmth, both of them glowing from the evening's performance. But was it really just a performance anymore? You were incredible, Ryan murmured as they stepped into the cool Manhattan evening. I can't believe you pulled that off. The coffee shop story? Emma shrugged, trying to ignore how empty she felt now that they were away from his family's warmth. I'm good at making things up. It didn't feel made up, he said quietly. They stood there on the sidewalk, the city humming around them, neither quite ready to break the spell of the evening. So, Emma said finally, I guess this is where we part ways and pretend this never happened. Ryan studied her face in the glow of the street lamps. Actually, I was hoping we could talk about that. There's a coffee shop around the corner, the real story of how we should have met. Emma knew she should say no, should walk away from whatever this was before it became more complicated than it already was. Instead, she smiled. Only if you promise not to wear a suit worth more than my rent. Deal. He laughed, and the sound sent those dangerous flutters through her chest again. As they walked toward the coffee shop, Emma realized that somewhere between the shattered champagne glasses and her fake biography, something real had begun to take root, something that felt suspiciously like the beginning of a love story. The coffee shop Ryan led her to was nothing like the trendy spots Emma usually couldn't afford. Tucked between a vintage bookstore and a flower shop, it had mismatched furniture, exposed brick walls lined with local artwork, and worn wooden floors that creaked welcomingly underfoot. This place doesn't exactly scream billionaire hangout, Emma observed, sliding into a corner booth with cushions that had seen better decades. Ryan laughed, loosening his bow tie with one hand while flagging down a waitress with the other. That's exactly why I love it. My assistant thinks I come here for business meetings. Really. I just come here to remember what normal feels like. Normal? Emma studied his face in the warm amber lighting. Even disheveled, Ryan Blackstone looked like he'd stepped off the cover of GQ, but there was something in his expression, a tiredness around his eyes, that made her think maybe being abnormally wealthy wasn't all private jets and champagne wishes. 2 coffees, please, Ryan told the waitress, then looked at Emma questioningly. Unless you prefer something else, hot chocolate, tea, coffee's perfect. Emma waited until the waitress moved away before leaning forward. Okay. Ryan Alexander Blackstone. Time for that incredible explanation you promised. Why did you need a fake wife so desperately that you were willing to claim a complete stranger? Ryan ran his hands through his dark hair, messing it up even more. The gesture was so unconsciously boyish that Emma felt her defenses wobble. My family has expectations, he began slowly. For 3 generations, Blackstone men have been married before their 30th birthday. It's practically written in stone. And you're turning 30 when? 2 weeks ago. Emma blinked. Wait, you already turned 30? Yep. Which means, according to my grandmother's will, I have exactly 6 months from my birthday to produce a wife, or my inheritance gets redistributed to various charities. That's... Emma struggled for words. That's medieval. And also, kind of crazy. Tell me about it. Ryan's smile was rueful. Don't get me wrong, the charities are all worthy causes, but we're talking about controlling interest in Blackstone Industries, the family foundation, and about $300 million. Emma's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. 300 million, give or take a few million. He said it like someone else might mention spare change. My grandmother Clara was a formidable woman. She built most of the family fortune herself after my grandfather died young, but she had very traditional ideas about marriage and family. So, what's the problem? I mean, you're... Emma gestured vaguely at his face. You're not exactly hard to look at. Surely there are women lining up to marry into that kind of money. Ryan's expression darkened. That's exactly the problem. For the past 2 years, every woman I've dated has known about the inheritance clause. My mother has paraded suitable candidates through dinner parties like I'm a prize bull at auction. Every conversation becomes about wedding venues and baby names before dessert is served. The waitress returned with their coffee and Emma wrapped her hands around the warm mug, processing this information. So tonight was supposed to be my parents' final attempt at matchmaking. They invited the daughter of one of their country club friends, Stanford educated. Old money. Perfect on paper. Ryan took a long sip of his coffee and grimaced. And about as interesting as watching paint dry. She spent 20 minutes explaining why my grandmother's Monet was hung in the wrong room for optimal lighting. Sounds delightful, Emma said dryly. When I saw she wasn't coming, her assistant called to say she was having a spiritual awakening in Tulum or something equally ridiculous. I panicked. My parents have been so worried about me ending up alone that they've started hinting about arranged marriages. Emma nearly choked on her coffee. Arranged marriages in 2024? Welcome to old money Manhattan. We're basically modern-day royalty with better dental work and worse scandals. Despite everything, Emma laughed. So when you dropped that tray, you looked like salvation with catastrophically bad timing. Ryan's smile was self-deprecating. I figured I could introduce you as my secret wife, tell my parents we eloped, and buy myself time to figure out a real solution. And what exactly is the real solution? Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee like it held answers to life's greatest mysteries. I don't know, he admitted finally. Find someone who wants to marry me for reasons that have nothing to do with money, I guess. Which seems about as likely as finding a unicorn in Central Park. Emma felt something twist in her chest at the loneliness in his voice. Here was a man who had everything most people dreamed of, and he couldn't trust that anyone would want him for himself. Ryan, she said softly, you know that any woman who got to know the real you would be lucky, right? Money aside. He looked up at her with surprise, as if genuine compliments were foreign territory. The real me is a workaholic who hasn't taken a vacation in 3 years and has standing reservations at 4 different restaurants because I'm too tired to cook most nights. The real you, Emma countered smoothly, saved a clumsy waitress from getting fired, charmed your parents into adoring a complete stranger, and brought said stranger to a coffee shop that serves the best coffee in Manhattan instead of some pretentious place with gold-plated stirring spoons. How do you know it's the best coffee in Manhattan? Emma took another sip, letting the rich flavor roll across her tongue. Because I've worked at about 15 different restaurants in this city, and I know good coffee when I taste it. 15 restaurants? I'm working my way through culinary school, Emma explained. Nights and weekends at NYU. The waitressing pays the bills barely. Ryan studied her face with new interest. What kind of chef do you want to be? No one ever asked her that. Not her coworkers, not her few friends, not even her family. The question caught her off guard. I want to open my own place someday, she heard herself saying. Nothing fancy, just good food that makes people happy. Comfort food with a twist. The kind of place where families celebrate birthdays and couples have their first dates. That sounds amazing. That sounds expensive and completely unrealistic, Emma corrected with a laugh. Do you know what it costs to open a restaurant in New York? I'll be paying off student loans until I'm 60. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Emma, Ryan said suddenly, what if I told you there might be a way we could help each other? Something in his tone made her nervous. What do you mean? You need money for school and your restaurant dream. I need a wife for 6 months to secure my inheritance. He leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. What if we made this arrangement official? Emma stared at him. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to consider a business proposition, a temporary marriage. 6 months, just long enough to satisfy my grandmother's will. In exchange, I pay off your student loans and provide startup capital for your restaurant. Emma's mind reeled. Ryan, that's crazy. We don't even know each other. We know each other better after 2 hours than most people do after months of dating, he pointed out. You saved my butt tonight and somehow made my parents happier than I've seen them in years. You're smart, funny, kind, and you don't want my money for designer handbags and trips to Europe. I don't want your money at all. But you need it, he said gently. And I need someone I can trust not to fall in love with my bank account. Emma stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. This is insane. People don't just marry strangers. People marry for convenience all the time. Green cards, insurance, tax benefits. This is just a different kind of convenience. What happens after 6 months? Clean divorce. No strings attached. You get your restaurant. I get my inheritance. Everyone wins. Emma sank back into the booth, her head spinning. Your parents would be devastated. My parents want me to be happy. If they believe I was happy for 6 months, even if it ends in divorce, that's more than they've seen from me in years. What about the lying, the deception? Ryan's expression grew serious. I know it's not ideal, but Emma, I've been trapped by other people's expectations my entire life. This inheritance clause was my grandmother's way of controlling me from the grave. Maybe it's time I took some control back. Emma stared at him, seeing past the expensive clothes and perfect features to the man underneath, a man who'd been reduced to his net worth so often that he'd forgotten his own value. If, and I'm saying if, I were to consider this completely insane proposition, she said slowly, what would the actual arrangement look like? Ryan's posture straightened with hope. You'd move into my apartment, separate bedrooms, obviously. We'd need to appear together at family events and some business functions. You could keep working and going to school if you wanted, or focus entirely on planning your restaurant. And after 6 months? After 6 months, we file for an amicable divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. I help you find a location for your restaurant. You go live your dream, and we both get our freedom. Emma was quiet for a long time, turning the possibilities over in her mind. It was crazy. It was impulsive. It was probably the worst idea in the history of bad ideas. It was also the answer to every financial prayer she'd ever whispered into her pillow at night. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Ryan pulled out his phone. Can I at least get your number in case you have questions or in case my mother calls wanting to plan brunch? Despite everything, Emma smiled. Your mother is going to plan brunch whether I answer or not. Probably true. They exchanged numbers and Ryan insisted on paying for the coffee despite Emma's protests. Outside the coffee shop, they stood awkwardly on the sidewalk, the weight of the evening's revelations hanging between them. Emma, Ryan said softly, for what it's worth, even if you decide this whole thing is too crazy, tonight was the most real I've felt in months. Before she could respond, he hailed a taxi and held the door open for her. Think about it, he said as she slid into the back seat. But don't think too long. I have a feeling my mother is already planning our anniversary party. As the taxi pulled away, Emma turned to watch him through the rear window. Ryan Blackstone stood on the sidewalk in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, hands in his pockets, looking like a man caught between two worlds just like she was. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for tonight. Whatever you decide. You saved me from death by boredom and family disappointment. That's worth more than money. R." Emma stared at the message until the city lights blurred outside the window. In her tiny Brooklyn apartment 20 minutes later, she sat on her second-hand couch and tried to process what had just happened. 12 hours ago, her biggest worry was whether she could afford groceries this week. Now, she had a marriage proposal from a man worth more than some small countries. Her phone rang, startling her out of her thoughts. It was Jess, her younger sister. "How was work tonight? Please tell me you didn't spill anything on anyone important." Emma laughed, a sound caught somewhere between hysteria and disbelief. "Actually, Jess, I kind of did the opposite." "What do you mean?" Emma looked around her cramped apartment, at the stack of unpaid bills on the coffee table, at the culinary school textbooks she'd bought used and highlighted within an inch of their lives, at the folder marked Restaurant Dreams, filled with magazine clippings and business plans she'd never have the capital to execute. "I think I just got offered the chance of a lifetime," she said slowly. "The question is whether I'm brave enough to take it." 3 days later, Emma stood in the marble foyer of Ryan's penthouse apartment, feeling like Alice after tumbling down the rabbit hole. Her entire life fit into 2 duffel bags and a cardboard box of culinary textbooks, a laughably small collection compared to the opulent space that was now supposedly her home. "This is temporary insanity," she muttered to herself, staring at the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of Central Park. "Second thoughts?" Ryan's voice came from behind her, warm with understanding rather than judgment. Emma turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, having traded his usual business attire for dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds. The casual look somehow made him even more devastating to her equilibrium. "More like third, fourth, and fifth thoughts," she admitted. "Your apartment is bigger than my entire apartment building." "Our apartment," Ryan corrected gently, pushing off the doorframe to help her with her bags. "For the next 6 months, anyway. Our apartment." The possessive pronoun sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. Emma had never shared living space with a man before. Her last relationship had ended when her ex-boyfriend suggested they take things to the next level by keeping a toothbrush at each other's places. Now she was living with a man she'd known for less than a week. "Come on," Ryan said, shouldering her duffel bag like it weighed nothing. "Let me show you to your room." "Our room?" She paused. He paused too, running his free hand through his hair in a gesture she was beginning to recognize as his tell when he was nervous. "This is going to take some getting used to for both of us." Emma followed him down a hallway lined with what looked like original artwork, trying not to gawk at the casual wealth surrounding her. They passed a living room that could have housed her entire culinary school cohort, a kitchen that would make Gordon Ramsay weep with envy, and what appeared to be a home office larger than most people's master bedrooms. "Here we are," Ryan said, opening double doors at the end of the hall. Emma stepped into the master bedroom and felt her breath catch. The room was enormous, with the same floor-to-ceiling windows, a sitting area complete with a fireplace, and a bed that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. But what struck her most was how lived in it felt. Books stacked on the nightstand, a coffee mug on the dresser, a suit jacket draped over a chair. "This is your room," she said, stating the obvious. "This is our room," Ryan replied. "If we're going to convince people this marriage is real, we need to share a bedroom. My housekeeper Maria comes twice a week, and my mother has been known to drop by unannounced." Emma's eyes widened. "You want us to actually share a bed?" "The bed is big enough for 4 people," Ryan said quickly. "We can put a pillow barrier down the middle if it makes you more comfortable. Or I can sleep on the couch in the sitting area. Whatever works for you." Emma walked to the windows, needing space to process. The park stretched out below them, autumn leaves painting the trees in shades of gold and crimson. It was beautiful, but it felt like looking at a postcard of someone else's life. "Emma," Ryan's voice was soft behind her. "If this is too much, we can figure something else out. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable in what's supposed to be your home." She turned to face him, struck by the genuine concern in his expression. "It's not that. It's just..." This morning I was worried about whether I could afford groceries this week. Tonight I'm standing in a penthouse that's probably worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. It's a lot to adjust to. I can imagine. Ryan joined her at the windows, careful to maintain a respectful distance. For what it's worth, I never really adjusted to it either. This place was my grandmother's wedding gift when I graduated from Harvard. I've lived here for 5 years and it still doesn't feel like home. What would home feel like? The question slipped out before Emma could stop it. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the park below. Smaller, he said eventually. Warmer. Full of things that mattered more than their price tags. Maybe with the smell of something good cooking in the kitchen and the sound of laughter echoing off the walls. Emma felt something shift in her chest at the wistfulness in his voice. That sounds perfect. Yeah, well, perfect and practical are two different things. Ryan's smile was self-deprecating. But enough about my domestic fantasies. Let me show you the rest of the place. The tour continued through a guest bedroom that Ryan had converted into a home gym, a formal dining room that looked like it had never seen actual food, and finally the kitchen that had taken Emma's breath away earlier. This is incredible, she breathed, running her hands over the marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that probably cost more than her tuition. You could run a restaurant out of here. I was hoping you'd say that. Ryan opened the enormous refrigerator, which was embarrassingly empty except for takeout containers and a few bottles of water. I should probably confess that I don't actually cook at all. I can barely make coffee without burning something. Emma laughed despite her nerves. Good thing you married a chef in training then. Good thing, Ryan agreed, and the way he looked at her when he said it made her stomach flip. They spent the next hour discussing practical arrangements, bathroom schedules, grocery shopping, what to do about Emma's work shifts at the restaurant. Ryan insisted she could quit immediately, but Emma held firm on wanting to maintain some normalcy in her upended life. Besides, she pointed out, if I suddenly quit my job the day after meeting you, people might get suspicious about our whirlwind romance. Fair point. Though you'll probably want to put in your notice soon. We have a lot of family events coming up, and my mother has already started planning. As if summoned by his words, Ryan's phone rang. His expression shifted to one of fond exasperation when he saw the caller ID. Hi, Mom. Yes, I told you Emma and I got married. No. You can't throw us an engagement party, we're already married. Mom, please. He caught Emma's eye and mouthed sorry before continuing. Actually, she's right here. Would you like to talk to her? Emma's eyes went wide with panic, but Ryan was already holding out the phone with an apologetic smile. Hello, Catherine, Emma said, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. Emma, darling, I hope you don't mind me calling. I just had the most wonderful idea for a welcome to the family party. Nothing too elaborate, just a few close friends. Emma listened with growing alarm as Catherine described what sounded like anything but a small gathering. Apparently, a few close friends in the Blackstone world meant 50 people, a catered dinner, and live music. That sounds lovely, Emma managed when Catherine paused for breath. But please, don't go to any trouble on our account. Nonsense. It's no trouble at all. Oh, and Emma. I took the liberty of calling my friend Helena, who owns that gorgeous boutique on Madison Avenue. She's setting aside some things she thinks would be perfect for you. Nothing too flashy, just a few pieces to help you feel at home in our little world. Emma met Ryan's eyes, which were full of sympathy and amusement in equal measure. You're too kind, Emma said weakly. Wonderful. I'll have Helena send everything over tomorrow. Oh, and darling, I'm so happy Ryan found you. I haven't heard him laugh this much in years. After Emma handed the phone back to Ryan, she sank onto one of the kitchen bar stools and buried her face in her hands. Your mother just bought me a wardrobe from Madison Avenue, she said, her voice muffled. She's enthusiastic, Ryan agreed, ending the call with promises to bring Emma to Sunday dinner. She means well. Ryan, I'm a waitress from Brooklyn. I don't know how to be the kind of wife your family expects. Hey. Ryan moved to stand in front of her, gently pulling her hands away from her face. You were perfect with them at the restaurant. Just be yourself. Myself doesn't own clothes appropriate for whatever social circle your family moves in. Then we'll figure it out together. His hands were warm on hers, his thumbs tracing gentle circles over her knuckles. Emma, I chose you precisely because you're not from my world. You're real in a way that most people in my life aren't. Emma looked up at him, struck by the sincerity in his voice. What if I embarrass you? What if you don't? Ryan countered. What if you're exactly what this family needs? Before Emma could respond, her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, breaking the tension and making them both laugh. When did you last eat? Ryan asked. I was too nervous to eat lunch, Emma admitted. Right. Food. I can order something. Or, he gestured helplessly at the pristine kitchen. Actually, no. I definitely can't cook anything that won't result in the fire department being called. Emma slid off the bar stool and began opening cabinets, taking inventory. You know what? I think it's time for cooking. Lesson number 1. Husband, you want to cook here now? I want to make this feel less like a museum and more like a home, Emma said, surprised by her own boldness. Besides, if we're going to be living together for 6 months, you need to learn at least the basics of keeping yourself fed. Ryan looked skeptical. I'm pretty sure I'm a lost cause in the kitchen. Everyone can learn to cook something simple. What's your favorite comfort food? Grilled cheese and tomato soup. Ryan answered immediately, then looked embarrassed. I know it's not sophisticated, but my nanny used to make it when I was sick. Emma's heart clenched at the image of a young Ryan being cared for by hired help instead of his parents. Grilled cheese it is. Do you have bread, cheese, butter? I think so. Ryan opened the refrigerator and began pulling out ingredients. Maria does my grocery shopping. Who's Maria? My housekeeper. You'll meet her tomorrow. She's been with the family for years. She practically raised me after my nanny left. Emma filed that information away, adding another piece to the puzzle of Ryan's complicated relationship with intimacy and family. Okay, she said, laying out the simple ingredients on the marble counter. First lesson. The perfect grilled cheese is all about the technique. What followed was the most domestic hour of Emma's life. She stood behind Ryan as he carefully buttered bread, her hands guiding his as he adjusted the heat on the stovetop. She showed him how to test the temperature of the pan with a drop of water, how to know when the cheese was perfectly melted, how to achieve that golden brown crust that made the difference between good and great. I can't believe I'm actually cooking, Ryan said, carefully flipping his sandwich with the concentration of a surgeon. You're not just cooking, Emma corrected. You're cooking well. Look at that perfect golden color. Ryan beamed at the praise like she'd just told him he'd won a Nobel Prize. I've never made anything more complicated than coffee before. Everyone has to start somewhere. They ate their grilled cheese sandwiches standing at the kitchen island, and Emma had to admit they were pretty perfect, crispy outside, gooey inside, simple but satisfying. This is the best meal I've had in this kitchen, Ryan said. Seriously, this is probably the only meal you've had in this kitchen. Exactly. Emma laughed, and the sound seemed to fill the cavernous space with warmth. For a moment it was easy to forget that this was all temporary, that she was essentially an employee with an unusually generous benefits package. Emma, Ryan said suddenly, thank you for teaching me to make grilled cheese, for making this place feel like home for the first time since I've lived here. The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. We should probably talk about boundaries, she said, needing to re-establish the professional nature of their arrangement before she got swept away by the domestic fantasy. Ryan's expression grew more serious. Of course. What did you have in mind? Well, for starters, sleeping arrangements. I think separate beds would be. There's a daybed in the sitting area of the master bedroom, Ryan interrupted. I can sleep there. That hardly seems fair. This is your apartment. Our apartment, Ryan corrected again. And I'm the one who asked you to share a bedroom for appearance's sake. The least I can do is take the less comfortable sleeping option. Emma studied his face, looking for any sign of resentment or frustration. All she saw was genuine consideration. What about personal space? Privacy? We both deserve privacy. If you need alone time, just say so. No questions asked. And the physical stuff for appearances? Ryan was quiet for a moment, considering. I think we should let it happen naturally. If we're at a family event and it feels natural to hold hands or put my arm around you, we do it. If it doesn't feel natural, we don't force it. That seems reasonable. What about you? Any boundaries I should know about? Emma thought carefully. I don't want this to affect my relationship with my sister or my mom. They're the most important people in my life, and I don't want to lie to them about something this big. You want to tell them the truth? I want to tell them enough of the truth that they don't worry about me. They don't need to know about the money or the inheritance clause, but I don't want them thinking I've lost my mind and married a stranger." Ryan nodded slowly. "That's fair. What would you tell them? That I met someone, that we have a real connection, and that we decided to take a chance on each other." Emma paused. "It's not entirely a lie." "No," Ryan said quietly, his eyes searching her face. "It's not entirely a lie." The moment stretched between them, loaded with unspoken possibilities. Emma felt herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by something she couldn't quite name. The spell was broken by the sharp ring of Ryan's phone. "Work," he said apologetically, glancing at the screen. "I should take this." As Ryan stepped away to answer the call, Emma began cleaning up their impromptu cooking lesson. She washed dishes in the enormous sink, listening to the murmur of Ryan's voice from the living room, and tried to process everything that had happened in the span of a few hours. She was living in a penthouse. She was married to a man who made her heart race and her good sense scatter. She was about to be launched into a social stratosphere she'd only read about in magazines. And despite all the rational reasons she should be terrified, she felt more alive than she had in years. "Sorry about that," Ryan said, returning to the kitchen as Emma finished drying the last plate. "Crisis at the Singapore office. Different time zones make for inconvenient emergency calls. You have offices in Singapore?" "Singapore, London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. Blackstone Industries has gone pretty global in the last decade." Emma tried to wrap her mind around the scale of Ryan's business empire. "What does Blackstone Industries actually do?" "We're primarily focused on sustainable technology investments, clean energy, water purification systems, carbon capture technology. My grandmother started the company in the 1960s manufacturing industrial equipment. But I've been shifting our focus toward environmental solutions." "That's incredible. You're literally trying to save the world." Ryan looked embarrassed by the praise. "I'm trying to make money while doing something useful. It's not as altruistic as it sounds." "It's more altruistic than most billionaires manage," Emma pointed out. "Most billionaires don't have their grandmother's voice in their head reminding them that wealth is meaningless unless it serves a purpose." Emma heard the affection in his voice when he mentioned his grandmother and realized there was still so much she didn't know about the man she'd married. "Tell me about her," she said. "Your grandmother." Ryan's entire expression softened. Clara Blackstone was a force of nature, 5 feet tall, sharp as a tack until the day she died, and absolutely terrifying when crossed. "She built this company from nothing after my grandfather died in a car accident when my dad was just 10 years old." "She sounds formidable." She was. But she was also the warmest person I knew. She's the one who taught me to cook well. Tried to teach me. I was apparently a hopeless student. Ryan smiled at the memory. "She used to say that anyone who couldn't feed themselves couldn't take care of anyone else." "Is that why the marriage clause was so important to her?" "Partly. She believed that family was everything, that success meant nothing if you didn't have someone to share it with. But I think she also worried that I'd end up isolated by wealth, the way she was after my grandfather died." Emma felt a pang of sympathy for both Ryan and his grandmother. It must have been lonely for her. "I think it was. She never remarried, never even dated as far as I know. She poured everything into the business, and into raising my father and later me. And now she's trying to make sure you don't make the same mistake even from beyond the grave," Ryan agreed. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in thought. "Ryan," Emma said finally, "what happens if your parents want to meet my family? Do you think they'd be comfortable with that?" Emma considered the question. Her mother Linda was one of the strongest people she knew, but she was also deeply practical. The idea of her daughter married to a billionaire would probably send her into overdrive trying to figure out the catch. "My mom's going to see right through any story we tell her," Emma said. "She raised 2 daughters on her own while working 3 jobs. She has finely tuned radar for situations that seem too good to be true. Maybe we should start with your sister then. Ease into it. Jess is going to be suspicious too, but for different reasons. She'll want to make sure you're not taking advantage of me." "Smart sister. The smartest. She's studying art therapy at Columbia on full scholarship. She's going to be a psychologist who helps kids process trauma through creative expression. She sounds amazing. I'd like to meet her." "You would?" "Emma, If we're going to make this work, I want to know the people who matter to you. Your family shaped who you are, and who you are is—" Ryan paused, searching for words. "Who you are is the reason I think this crazy plan might actually work." Emma felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "In that case, maybe we should start with a casual meeting. Jess comes to the restaurant where I work sometimes to study. Maybe you could drop by during one of my shifts, meet her naturally." "I'd like that." Ryan's smile was soft and genuine. "Though I should warn you, I'm not very good at casual. My idea of dressing down is wearing a polo shirt instead of a button-down." "We'll work on it," Emma laughed. "Consider it part of your education in being a normal person." "Is that what this is? Normal person boot camp?" "For both of us. I've never been married to anyone, let alone someone whose net worth has more zeros than my social security number." They migrated to the living room as they talked, settling on opposite ends of an enormous sectional sofa that probably cost more than Emma's car. The space felt less intimidating now that they'd filled it with conversation and laughter. "Emma," Ryan said after a while, "can I ask you something personal? I think we're past the point of standing on ceremony. Have you ever been in love? Really in love?" The question caught her off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because I realize I know a lot about your professional goals and your family, but nothing about your romantic history. And if we're going to convince people we're madly in love, I should probably know whether you have any tells when you're actually feeling that emotion." Emma pulled her legs up under her, considering how much to reveal. "I thought I was in love once in college. His name was David, and he was everything I thought I wanted. Pre-med student, came from a good family, had his whole life planned out. What happened? He graduated and got accepted to medical school at Johns Hopkins. He asked me to come with him, drop out of culinary school, and focus on supporting his career until he got established." Emma's voice grew dry. "Apparently he thought my chef ambitions were a cute hobby that I'd outgrow once we got serious." Ouch. "Yeah, it took me embarrassingly long to realize that he didn't love me. He loved the idea of having a supportive wife who would prioritize his dreams over her own. His loss," Ryan said quietly. "Maybe. Or maybe I just learned something important about what I actually need in a relationship, someone who sees my dreams as equally important as their own. Someone who wants to be a partner, not looking for a supporting actress in their life story." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "That's a good standard to have. What about you? Ever been in love?" "I thought I was briefly. Her name was Amanda, and she was perfect on paper, Harvard MBA, came from a family similar to mine, understood the social expectations that come with my name. But when I really thought about it, I realized I was more in love with how easy she made everything than with her as a person. She knew which fork to use at formal dinners. She charmed my parents effortlessly. She never asked me to be anything other than what I already was." "That doesn't sound terrible." "It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't real either. We could have had a perfectly pleasant, completely passionless marriage that looked great in wedding photos and felt like a business merger." Emma studied his profile as he stared out at the city lights. "What happened?" She ended it. Actually said she'd realized she was more excited about the idea of being Mrs. Blackstone than about being my wife specifically. Ryan's smile was rueful. "Turns out she was right. That was about a year ago, right around the time my mother's matchmaking efforts shifted into high gear." Emma felt a pang of sympathy for both of them, two people trying to force themselves into a mold that didn't quite fit. "Ryan," she said softly, "what if this arrangement of ours ends up being the most honest relationship either of us has ever had?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've both been completely upfront about our motivations. We both know exactly what we're getting out of this deal. There are no hidden agendas or unrealistic expectations." "True. And maybe that honesty gives us permission to be more ourselves than we've ever been with anyone else." Ryan turned to look at her fully, something shifting in his expression. "Emma Hayes Blackstone, you are full of surprises. Is that good or bad?" "That's the best thing anyone's ever been." The way he said it, like he meant it completely, made Emma's breath catch. For a moment she forgot that this was temporary, that this was a business arrangement, that she was supposed to be protecting her heart. For a moment it felt like the beginning of something real. "We should probably get some sleep," she said, needing to break the spell before she did something foolish like lean over and kiss him. "Right. Big day tomorrow." Maria's coming in the morning, my lawyer's bringing the prenup papers, and apparently my mother's personal shopper is delivering a new wardrobe. Just another typical Thursday. Emma smiled. Just another typical Thursday in the life of Mrs. Emma Blackstone. As they headed toward the master bedroom, Emma caught sight of their reflection in the hallway mirror. They looked like a couple heading to bed together, comfortable and intimate in a way that seemed impossible after less than a week. Fake it till you make it, she thought. But as Ryan dimmed the lights and they began the awkward dance of preparing for their first night sharing a bedroom, Emma wondered if they were already further along the path from fake to real than either of them realized. "Good night, Emma," Ryan said softly from the daybed he'd insisted on taking. "Good night, husband," she replied, and the word felt more natural than it should have. As she lay in Ryan's enormous bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to his quiet breathing across the room, Emma realized that somewhere between the grilled cheese sandwiches and the conversation about love, the line between pretend and reality had started to blur. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what they both needed. 3 weeks later, Emma stood in the marble bathroom of the penthouse at 6 o'clock in the morning, staring at her reflection and wondering when exactly her life had become unrecognizable. The woman looking back at her wore silk pajamas that cost more than her old monthly rent, had professionally styled hair courtesy of Ryan's mother's personal stylist, and was about to have breakfast with her fake husband's business partners from London. Fake husband who had made her genuine coffee every morning for 3 weeks, who left little notes in her culinary textbooks when he found them lying around, and who had somehow convinced her to quit her waitressing job by making a very compelling argument that Mrs. Emma Blackstone shouldn't be serving other people dinner when she could be learning to create her own culinary empire. "This is temporary," she whispered to her reflection, the same mantra she'd been repeating since she'd woken up in Ryan's bed alone, because he'd insisted on sleeping on the daybed every single night, despite her increasing protests that it couldn't be comfortable. "This is a business arrangement. This is absolutely, definitely not falling in love with your fake husband." A soft knock on the bathroom door made her jump. "Emma, the car will be here in 20 minutes for the breakfast meeting." Ryan's voice carried through the door, warm with the kind of easy familiarity that had developed between them over the past weeks. "Coming," she called back, taking one last look at herself. The navy Chanel suit that Catherine had insisted on buying her fit perfectly, making her look like she belonged in boardrooms and charity galas instead of behind a restaurant counter. She opened the door to find Ryan adjusting his tie in the bedroom mirror, and her breath caught the way it had every morning for 3 weeks. Today he wore a charcoal gray Tom Ford suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and made his eyes look like pewter. His hair was still slightly damp from the shower, and Emma had to resist the urge to run her fingers through it. "Business arrangement," she reminded herself firmly. "You look beautiful," Ryan said, turning from the mirror with a smile that made her stomach flip. "Ready to charm some British investors into thinking I have excellent taste in wives?" As ready as anyone can be to pretend they know anything about sustainable technology investments, Emma replied, smoothing down her skirt nervously. "You'll be fine. Just be yourself. They're going to love you." Over the past 3 weeks, Emma had attended 4 family dinners, 2 charity galas, and a country club brunch, and somehow she hadn't embarrassed herself yet. She'd learned which fork to use for the salad course, how to make small talk about art and theater, and how to deflect personal questions about her background with charming vagueness. But most importantly, she'd learned how to be married to Ryan Blackstone. They'd developed a rhythm, a comfortable domestic dance that felt surprisingly natural. He brought her coffee in the morning. She cooked dinner in the evenings when he wasn't working late. He helped her study for her finals. She taught him to make pasta from scratch. He rubbed her feet when she came home from long days of apartment hunting for her future restaurant. She massaged his shoulders when he'd been hunched over his laptop for too many hours. It was the most functional relationship Emma had ever had, which would have been perfect if it weren't for the increasingly inconvenient fact that she was falling hopelessly in love with him. "Emma." Ryan's voice brought her back to the present. He was standing directly in front of her now, concern written across his features. "You okay? You looked like you were somewhere else entirely." "Just thinking about the menu for tomorrow night's dinner party," she lied smoothly. Catherine had somehow convinced them to host a dinner party for Ryan's business associates, and Emma had spent the better part of the week planning a menu that would impress without looking like she was trying too hard. You sure that's all? Emma looked up into his gray eyes and felt the same flutter in her chest that had been growing stronger every day. The way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person in any room, like her thoughts and feelings mattered more than anything else, was becoming harder and harder to remember, was all an act. I'm sure, she said, reaching up to straighten his already perfect tie just to have an excuse to touch him. Now come on, husband. Let's go convince some Londoners that we're madly in love. That part's getting easier every day, Ryan murmured, and something in his voice made Emma's heart skip. The breakfast meeting was held at the Mandarin Oriental's penthouse restaurant, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of Central Park. Emma found herself seated between Ryan and a charming British woman named Victoria Petton, who owned a chain of eco-friendly hotels across Europe. So, Emma, Victoria said, over perfectly prepared eggs Benedict, Ryan tells us you're a chef. How exciting. Are you planning to open your own restaurant? Actually, yes, Emma replied, surprised by how natural the answer felt now. I'm looking at spaces in the village, something intimate, focused on farm-to-table American cuisine with global influences. How wonderful. You know, I've been looking for someone to consult on the restaurant concepts for our new properties. Would you be interested in discussing a potential partnership? Emma nearly choked on her mimosa. 3 weeks ago she'd been serving other people's food and worrying about rent money. Now she was being offered international consulting opportunities. I would love that, she managed, glancing at Ryan, who was beaming with pride. Brilliant. I'll have my assistant send you some information about our upcoming properties. Rome, Barcelona, and we're just breaking ground on a lovely spot in Tuscany. Emma spent the rest of breakfast discussing menu concepts and restaurant design with Victoria, while Ryan and the other investors talked about expansion plans and market projections. It wasn't until they were saying their goodbyes that Emma realized how seamlessly she'd fit into Ryan's world, how naturally she'd transitioned from observer to participant. You were incredible, Ryan said as their car pulled away from the hotel. Victoria was completely charmed. I think you just landed your first major consulting contract. I can't believe that just happened, Emma said, still slightly dazed. 3 weeks ago I was dropping trays of champagne, and now I'm discussing restaurant concepts in Tuscany. 3 weeks ago you dropped a tray of champagne on exactly the right person, Ryan corrected, taking her hand in his. The gesture had become automatic over the past weeks, a casual intimacy, neither of them questioned anymore. Emma looked down at their intertwined fingers, at the simple platinum band on her ring finger that matched his. The rings had been Ryan's idea. If they were going to convince people they were married, they needed to look the part. But somewhere along the way, the weight of the ring had begun to feel less foreign and more like it belonged there. Ryan, she said softly. What happens when this is all over? His thumb stilled against her knuckles. What do you mean? I mean in 3 months, when we file for divorce and go back to our separate lives. What happens to all of this? The connections I've made through your family, the opportunities like Victoria's offer, do I get to keep those, or do they disappear when I stop being Mrs. Blackstone? Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city passing by their window. Emma, he said finally. The people who matter, the ones worth keeping in your life, like you for you, not for your last name. Victoria wasn't charmed by your marriage certificate. She was charmed by your passion and your ideas. But would she have given me the opportunity if I weren't your wife? Maybe not initially, Ryan admitted. But that's how business works. It's about connections and opportunities. The difference is what you do with those opportunities once you get them. Emma nodded, but something heavy settled in her stomach. In 3 months, she'd go back to being Emma Hayes, the girl from Brooklyn with big dreams and a small bank account. She'd have her restaurant and her freedom. But she'd also lose this. The partnership, the easy intimacy, the feeling of being part of something bigger than herself. She'd lose Ryan. Stop it, she told herself firmly. This was always temporary. Don't ruin it by wanting more than you agreed to. Besides, Ryan continued, his voice lighter now, who says it all has to end in 3 months? Emma's heart jumped. What do you mean? I mean, maybe we could still be friends afterward. Business partners even. You could consult for Blackstone Industries' hospitality investments. Friends. The word hit Emma like a physical blow. Of course that's what he meant, not a real marriage, not a real relationship, just a professional connection that would outlast their fake romantic one. Right. She managed. Friends. Something flickered across Ryan's expression, too quick for her to interpret. Unless you'd rather make a clean break when this is over, I'd understand if… No, Emma said quickly, then forced herself to sound more casual. No? Friends sounds good. Great, actually. They spent the rest of the car ride in comfortable silence. But Emma's mind was spinning. 3 months had seemed like a lifetime when they'd first made their agreement. Now it felt like no time at all. That evening, Emma was in the kitchen preparing dinner when her sister called. "Em, how's married life treating you?" Jess's voice was bright with curiosity. Emma had introduced her to Ryan the week before, and while Jess had been initially suspicious, Ryan's genuine interest in her art therapy work had won her over completely. "It's good," Emma said, stirring the risotto she was making. "Really good, actually. You sound weird. What's wrong?" Emma should have known better than to try to hide anything from her sister. Jess had always been able to read her like an open book. "Nothing's wrong. I'm just adjusting." Adjusting to what? Having a gorgeous billionaire who looks at you like you hung the moon. He doesn't look at me like that. Emma, Catherine Hayes. Are you kidding me right now? The man couldn't take his eyes off you when I met him. And the way he talked about your restaurant plans, he sounded like your biggest fan. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest at the memory. Ryan had spent an hour enthusiastically describing her culinary vision to Jess, making Emma's dreams sound grand and achievable instead of impossibly ambitious. "It's complicated, Jess. It's only complicated if you're making it complicated. Do you love him?" The question hit Emma like a freight train. "What? Do you love Ryan?" It's a simple yes or no question. Emma opened her mouth to say no, to give the safe, sensible answer that would protect her heart and maintain the boundaries of their arrangement. Instead, she found herself saying, "Yes, I think I do." "And does he love you?" "I don't know," Emma whispered. "I think maybe he could, but this whole thing started as a business arrangement, and I don't want to mess it up by wanting more than he's willing to give." "Emma," Jess's voice was gentle but firm, "you deserve to be with someone who's crazy about you, really, truly crazy about you, not someone who's going through the motions because it's convenient." "It's not like that," Emma protested. "Ryan he's wonderful. He's kind and funny and brilliant, and he makes me feel like I could conquer the world. Then what's the problem?" "The problem is that none of this is real," Emma said, her voice cracking slightly. "It's all temporary. In 3 months I go back to my regular life, and he goes back to his. We've been very clear about that from the beginning. Has he said he wants it to be temporary?" Emma thought about Ryan's comment in the car about remaining friends afterward. "Not in so many words, but… Emma, listen to me very carefully. You are an incredible woman. You're smart and talented and beautiful, and any man would be lucky to have you in his life permanently. If Ryan Blackstone can't see that, then he doesn't deserve you. But what if he can see it and he just doesn't want it? What if I'm just a convenient solution to his inheritance problem, and I'm reading more into this than there actually is? Then you'll find out, and you'll deal with it." "But Em, what if you're wrong? What if he's falling for you just as hard as you're falling for him, and you're both too scared to admit it?" Before Emma could respond, she heard Ryan's key in the front door. "I have to go," she said quickly. "He's home. Think about what I said, Em. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all." Emma hung up just as Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway, loosening his tie with one hand and holding a bottle of wine with the other. "Something smells incredible," he said, moving to kiss her cheek in greeting. The gesture had become routine over the past weeks, but tonight Emma felt it all the way to her toes. "Mushroom risotto with truffle oil," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "How was your afternoon?" "Long conference call with Tokyo, but productive. How was your day?" "Did you hear back from any of the restaurant spaces you looked at?" Emma had spent the afternoon touring potential locations for her restaurant, armed with a budget she still couldn't quite believe was real. The landlords had taken her seriously in a way they never had before, when she'd been just another server with big dreams and no capital. "Actually, yes. There's a place in the village that could be perfect. It needs work, but the bones are good, and the rent is reasonable." "That's fantastic. Tell me everything." They talked about restaurant plans over dinner, Ryan asking thoughtful questions about seating capacity and kitchen workflow, offering suggestions about contractors and permit processes. He listened with the kind of focused attention that made Emma feel like her dreams were the most important thing in the world. It wasn't until they were cleaning up that Emma worked up the courage to ask the question that had been nagging at her since their conversation in the car. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Emma dried her hands on a dish towel, gathering her courage. "When this arrangement ends, do you think you'll miss it? Any of it?" Ryan went still, a plate halfway to the dishwasher. "Miss what specifically?" "This, the domestic stuff. Having someone to cook dinner with. Someone to talk to about your day, having a partner." Ryan finished loading the plate and closed the dishwasher, taking his time with his answer. "Emma," he said, finally turning to face her, "I've never had anything like this before. The kind of easy companionship we've developed, the way you make this place feel like home instead of just somewhere I sleep between meetings. So yes, I think I'll miss it." The question hung between them like a challenge. "But not enough to want to make it permanent?" Emma heard herself ask. Ryan's expression grew guarded, and Emma immediately regretted her boldness. "Emma, when we started this we agreed." "I know what we agreed," Emma interrupted, embarrassment making her voice sharper than she'd intended. "Forget I asked. I'm just having a moment of, I don't know, temporary insanity." She started to move past him toward the living room, needing space to collect herself, but Ryan caught her arm gently. "Hey," he said softly, "talk to me. What's really going on?" Emma looked up at him at the concern in his gray eyes and felt her carefully constructed walls crumble. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared that in 3 months when this is over, I'm going to be completely ruined for any other relationship because no one else will ever measure up to you." Ryan's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features. "Emma, I know it's not fair. I know we agreed this was temporary, that it was just business," Emma continued, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like pretend to me, and I know that's my problem, not yours. But I needed you to know." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, his hand still gentle on her arm. "Do you want to know something?" he said finally. "What?" 3 weeks ago, when you agreed to this arrangement, I thought I was getting a convenient solution to my inheritance problem, someone who could play the role of my wife convincingly enough to fool my family for 6 months. Emma's heart sank. This was it, the moment he reminded her that this was all just an act for him. "But Emma," Ryan continued, his voice growing softer, "I never expected to actually fall in love with you." Emma's breath caught. "What did you say?" "I said I'm in love with you." Ryan's smile was rueful. "Completely, hopelessly, inconveniently in love with you. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for weeks, but I didn't want to complicate our agreement or put pressure on you. You're in love with me? I'm in love with the way you hum while you cook. I'm in love with how passionate you get when you talk about your restaurant. I'm in love with the way you remember how I like my coffee and leave little encouraging notes in my briefcase when I have difficult meetings." Emma stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "I'm in love with how kind you are to my mother even when she's overwhelming. I'm in love with how you can make me laugh after the worst days. I'm in love with the way you make this apartment feel like a home instead of a showcase. Ryan, I'm in love with you, Emma. Not Mrs. Blackstone. Not the woman who helps me maintain my inheritance. You, Emma Hayes, who dropped champagne on me and changed my entire life." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I love you too." "You do?" "I love you so much it terrifies me. I've been trying not to because I thought this was all temporary, but I can't help it. You're everything I never knew I wanted." Ryan's smile was radiant. "So what do we do now?" "I don't know," Emma laughed, wiping at her eyes. "I don't think there's a protocol for falling in love with your fake husband." "Well," Ryan said, pulling her closer, "I have an idea." "What's that?" "What if we stop calling it fake?" Emma's heart stuttered. "Are you asking me to really marry you?" "I'm asking you to stay married to me. Really married. No expiration date, no business arrangement, no prenup, just us figuring out how to build a life together. What about your inheritance? I'll get it because I'll be married to the woman I love, what it was always supposed to be about. What about my restaurant? We'll build it together, partners in everything. Emma looked into Ryan's eyes and saw her future, not the safe, predictable one she'd planned, but something bigger and more beautiful than she'd ever dared to imagine. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, I'll stay married to you. Really married." Ryan's kiss tasted like promises and champagne, like new beginnings and happy endings all rolled into one. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Emma realized that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected accidents. "So," Ryan said, resting his forehead against hers, "I guess this means we should probably start sharing the bed instead of pretending that daybed is comfortable." "Definitely," Emma agreed. "That thing looks like a medieval torture device." "It feels like one too. Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was trying to be a gentleman. And because I was afraid if I got any closer to you I'd do something foolish like fall in love with you." "Too late for that, husband." "Way too late, wife." As they headed toward the bedroom, their bedroom now, really and truly, Emma caught sight of their reflection in the hallway mirror. They looked like what they'd been pretending to be for 3 weeks. A couple in love heading toward their future together. The only difference now was that it wasn't pretend anymore. 2 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of her restaurant, watching the last of the dinner rush orders go out to the dining room. Hayes, as she decided to call it, had been open for exactly 1 week, and already they were booked solid for the next 2 months. The space in Greenwich Village was everything she'd dreamed of. Exposed brick walls, warm lighting, and an open kitchen that allowed diners to watch the magic happen. The menu was exactly what she'd envisioned, elevated comfort food that told the story of her journey from Brooklyn waitress to Manhattan restaurateur. "Chef," her sous chef Marcus called out, "the critic from the Times is at table 7. Emma felt a flutter of nerves, but pushed them aside. Over the past 2 months, she'd learned to trust herself, to believe that she belonged in the world she'd built. "How are they looking?" "Clean plates all around. I think they're about to order dessert." Emma smiled, wiping her hands on her apron. "Perfect. Send them the chocolate soufflé with the salted caramel center on the house." As the kitchen began the process of closing down for the evening, Emma stepped out into the dining room to make her rounds. Hayes was exactly what she'd envisioned. Couples sharing intimate dinners, families celebrating special occasions, friends laughing over good food and wine. Her eyes found Ryan immediately. He was at his usual table in the corner, laptop open, nursing a glass of wine while he waited for her to finish for the evening. He'd been coming in every night during the soft opening, partly to support her and partly because, as he'd put it, "I finally found somewhere that serves food better than takeout." "How did service go?" he asked, as she slid into the seat across from him. 3 covers sent back, 1 complaint about the lighting, and Marcus thinks we need to adjust the seasoning on the short rib. "So a complete disaster then?" Emma laughed, recognizing his teasing tone. "The worst. I should probably just give up and go back to waitressing. Good thing you married someone who can support you in the lifestyle to which you've become accustomed." Speaking of which, Emma reached into her apron pocket and pulled out an envelope. "We got our first review." Ryan's eyebrows shot up. "Already? We've only been open a week." Apparently the food blogger from New York Magazine came in on Tuesday. She posted her review online this afternoon. Emma handed him the printed review, watching his face as he read. His expression shifted from curiosity to surprise to pure pride. "Emma," he said quietly, "listen to this. Hayes represents the best of what New York dining can be, unpretentious excellence that makes you feel like you've discovered a secret. Chef Emma Blackstone has created something special here, a restaurant that feels both sophisticated and welcoming, serving food that satisfies both the palate and the soul." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She called it unpretentious excellence. "She called you Chef Emma Blackstone," Ryan pointed out. "You've officially arrived." Emma looked around her restaurant at the satisfied diners, the efficient staff, the warm glow of success, and felt a sense of completion she'd never experienced before. "You know what the best part is?" she said. "What's that?" "I get to share it with you. All of it. The successes, the disasters, the 3 a.m. panic attacks about whether I've made a terrible mistake." "The terrible mistakes are my favorite part," Ryan said solemnly. "I'm very good at talking you down from 3 a.m. panic attacks. You're good at a lot of things, Mr. Blackstone. I'm especially good at being married to you, Mrs. Blackstone." Emma reached across the table to take his hand, her wedding ring catching the light. They'd renewed their vows 2 weeks after their living room confession, this time in front of their families, and with words they'd written themselves. Emma's mother had cried through the entire ceremony, and Catherine had already started dropping hints about grandchildren. "So," Emma said, "what do you think? Ready to go home?" "Always with you." As they walked out of Hayes together, Emma reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling culinary student with big dreams and a small bank account. Tonight, she was a restaurant owner, married to the love of her life, with more opportunities than she'd ever imagined possible. It had all started with a dropped tray of champagne and a desperate man who needed a fake wife. But it had become something neither of them had expected, a real love story with real stakes and real rewards. "Emma," Ryan said as they settled into the back of their car, "I have something to tell you." "What's that?" "My grandmother's lawyer called today. The inheritance has been officially transferred." "That's wonderful. How do you feel?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, considering. "Grateful. Not for the money exactly, but for the clause that forced me to find you. Even though we're staying married anyway? Especially because we're staying married anyway. It means I know you're here because you want to be, not because of any contract or deadline." Emma leaned against Ryan's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, breathing in the scent that had become synonymous with home. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think your grandmother would have loved the way this turned out." "Yeah," Ryan agreed softly. "You found someone to share your success with, someone who loves you for who you are instead of what you have, and you helped make her dreams come true in the process. That's what she wanted, right? For you to find your person." "My person," Ryan repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." "Good," Emma said, tilting her face up to kiss him. "Because you're stuck with me now." "Best accident I ever had," Ryan murmured against her lips. As their car pulled through the evening traffic toward home, Emma smiled, thinking about all the accidents that had led them here, the dropped champagne, the desperate lie, the fake marriage that had become beautifully, perfectly real. Sometimes the best love stories began with the most improbable accidents, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, those accidents turned into the rest of your life.